Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our text tool or our type tool, and I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to click on my mat to begin typing. Okay, I'm going to type the word autumn. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and click keep proportions here so that as I grab this handle and resize it, it keeps the word in proportion, okay? So I'm going to make it about this big. Now I just want to show you one of the options up here under text. Okay, now as long as you have your text highlighted, you can click on text here, okay, and then you can change the size. Okay, we can change it to 5, we can change it to 1. In addition to being able to change the size, you can also change the font by clicking text and going to font, and then clicking on one of the fonts here in this list. Okay, you saw how that changed there. I'll do it again. Change it to something completely different. I'll change it to this Katy Berry font. There you go. Okay, so once you have something on your mat, and if you want to change what font it is, you can highlight it and then go under text and change the font. Now, as long as you have the word highlighted, in addition to changing the font up here, you can also change it down here. So I'm going to change it back to impact. Okay, now let's say that you want to take this word and cut it out in one solid piece, or in other words, you want to weld it. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to select this word and go over under Appearance here and click the Weld button, okay? Now checking this box basically tells Shortcuts a lot that we want all parts of this element to be welded. Now, in order to weld this, and in order to overlap these letters, we need to be able to manipulate them individually. Right now, it's all one solid piece, okay? So what we need to do is we need to ungroup this element so that we can edit each individual piece. Okay, now we can do that in one of two ways. We can right-click here, and we can click Ungroup, okay? Or we can highlight it and go to Object and click Ungroup here, okay? So let's do that. We're going to click Ungroup, and now you'll notice that I can click on these individually. So now watch this. If I highlight each of these individually, you'll notice that over here, they still have this weld button checked, okay? So that means that I can literally take this and overlap it. You can kind of skew it a little bit to give it a little bit of funk. There we go. And I can take both of these now and drag them over this one. Okay, I'm going to take the U and tilt it a little bit this way, and I can use the up and down arrows on my keyboard to nudge it, or I can nudge it here. Now I'm going to take all three of these by drawing a box around them and move them over so that they overlap the T. And now I'm going to drag a box around these and move this over. And finally, I'm going to take this and move it over the A. You'll see that these shapes overlap. The only way to be sure that you're going to have one solid cut is by clicking on this preview button here. Okay, so let's go ahead and click preview. And now you'll see here that this solid line here is where your cutting machine will actually cut. So yes, this will be one solid piece, okay? And as you can see here, these light gray areas are the areas that are actually overlapping. So let me just show you so I can illustrate this for you. I'm going to deselect that, and then I'm going to highlight this whole thing, and I'm going to uncheck the weld button. Now watch here, if I click on preview, you'll notice that there's no more light gray area, and you see all these solid lines. So this is actually going to be a real mess when it cuts. Okay, so again, we'll highlight this whole thing, we'll click weld, we'll check the preview, and there you go. It's going to weld very, very nicely. Now, by default, your mat may not look like this, okay? Your mat may look more like this, okay, because it's showing the outlines of the elements that are on the mat. Instead of showing the outline, you can go to View and uncheck this Show Outlines option so that you can actually see each shape with a fill, okay? The fill allows you to see the overlapping a little bit better. Alright, so let's say that I'm happy with where I am right now, but I want to change the A a little bit or make it bigger or actually change the font. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the A and I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard and get rid of it. Now I can take this section of the word, highlight the whole thing, and I can right click on it and I can group it. Okay, now what I've done is basically taken all of these letters and grouped them all together so that no matter where I click, it will be one element. And I can actually size these together, rotate them together, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to click on my type tool, and I'm going to select this font called Katy Berry, and I'm going to click on my mat and type the letter A. Okay, I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to make this really big, and I'm going to overlap it like this. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I select Weld, and now I'm going to take this entire thing here, bring it right in the middle, and I'm going to check my preview here. Look at that. Okay, that's going to cut all as one piece now. And again, if I'm totally happy with this and the size and everything, I can highlight the entire element, right click, and then group it all together. So now when I go ahead and click anywhere on any of these letters, the entire group of elements will be selected, and I can edit them all together. I can rotate them together, I can make them big or small, so on and so forth. Okay, so to take it one step further, I'm going to take this word, make it a little bit smaller, move it off to the side, and then just to show you, you can do this with SVG files or library elements. Okay, I'm going to do it with both here. I'm going to bring up my personal library, and I'm going to select something that's fall related here. Okay, so we're going to go to autumn, and I'm going to pull up a autumn element. I like this leaf here. I'm going to bring this leaf in, and I can close this. So here's my leaf. Okay, again, as long as I have it highlighted and click Weld, I can take it and place it anywhere, okay, and it will actually cut out as one piece. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to place it right up here. So take this entire thing and move it over, and let me just take a look at what that's going to look like. That's actually pretty cool. So I've welded my letters, I've welded my leaf, and if I look at the preview, you can tell where it's going to cut, and it looks like this is going to be a pretty cool looking caption. Now I'm going to click on the preview button again, and I noticed here that the leaf has some inner cuts here, and maybe I don't want that. So what I can do, since the leaf has not been grouped with the rest of the element, I can highlight the leaf, and I can click on the style dropdown, and I can click Blackout. Okay, the Blackout option basically removes any cuts that are inside of an element. Okay, so you've got an outside cut and an inside cut. The Blackout basically blacks the entire element out, so it creates somewhat of a silhouette. Okay, so now check this out. If I go ahead and I take a look at the preview, and as you can see here, we've removed the inside of the leaf now, and that's just personal preference. You can do that if you want, okay? I can go back and I can change it from Blackout back to normal so that I can see those inner cuts. Okay, so let's say that I'm happy with the Blackout and that I even want to take it a step further and group this together. Okay, so now this is all grouped together and it's all welded. I can resize it all together. Anywhere I click, the entire element will be selected. Now, what if I wanted to take this, cut it out, but then also put it on top of its shadow? Okay, so I can actually do that by going here and clicking Shadow. Okay, and if we take a look at the preview, this is what it's going to cut out. So this will sit beneath this, okay, and that's going to create a shadowy effect. Okay, and you can actually go in and change the actual settings for the shadow to decide how much of a shadow you want, how thick of a shadow you want, and you can do that by adjusting these values here. You can create a pointy shadow, create a straight shadow. Again, here's the Blackout option. And then these three options here, Shadow Blackout Rounded, Shadow Blackout Pointy, and Shadow Blackout Straight, are basically a combination of these two, Shadow and Blackout. So that's it as far as welding goes. Just remember, when it comes to welding, it's important to remember that each element on the mat that you want to weld together has the weld checkbox checked.